What's good everybody, this is CP and welcome back to my NBA Fantasy series. Today let's talk about potential sleepers and breakout players at the power forward position. Many of these players has a good chance to either outplay their draft position or significantly improve their fantasy numbers this year. And drafting them may give you the extra edge you need to win it all in 2019-2020. So let's not waste any more time and 走起吧. Miles Bridges of the Charlotte Hornets may be one of the most improved fantasy players in the NBA this year. As a rookie, he averaged 7.5 points, 4 rebounds, along with 0.83, 0.7 steals, and 0.6 blocks. Overall, Bridges' stat line wasn't bad considering he only started in 25 games and averaged just over 21 minutes a night. But heading into the 2019-2020 NBA season, Bridges heads into a much better fantasy situation. Kemba Walker, Tony Parker, and Jeremy Lamb are no longer there. This eliminates 3 of the highest used players on the Charlotte roster from last year. So heading into the new season, there will be plenty of playing time up for grabs. This also opens up the opportunity for Bridges to get a nice bump in usage rate, which was only 15.1% last year. As a result, Bridges has a shot to be one of the primary options on Charlotte's offense along with Terry Rozier this year. I expect both players' fantasy stats to take a huge leap forward this season. There has been speculation that Marvin Williams will be moved to the bench in favor of making Bridges the team's starting power forward. This does kind of make sense as Williams is 33 years old and will be a free agent after the 2019-2020 season. Keep in mind that Bridges saw a lot of time at small forward last year, so even if Williams does stay in the lineup, Bridges might be a starter at the 3. At only 21 years old with plenty of potential, the Hornets could potentially set him loose this year and give Miles Bridges the opportunity to shine. In 25 games as a starter last year, Bridges was averaging 9.6 points, 5.3 boards, 1.6 assists, 1.1 steal, and 1.13 pointers in 26.1 minutes. If those starting numbers are any indication of what he can do, we should be able to see Bridges give you decent value in at least 5 categories. All signs seem to indicate that Bridges will be in for a huge breakout year. He is not a flashy name in fantasy basketball yet, so in standard 12-team leagues, if you can get Bridges anytime after the 7th round, it might turn out to be a huge steal. Jaren Jackson Jr. of the Memphis Grizzlies quietly had a very solid rookie season. He played somewhat limited minutes at around 26 minutes a night, but still managed to average 13.8 points along with 4.7 boards, 1.4 blocks, and 0.9 steals. He also surprised a lot of people by averaging 0.9 threes per game, and made a total of 51 threes from beyond the arc last year. Just turning 20 before the season starts, Jackson Jr. is still very raw, but has shown upside in 3 scoring, steals, and blocks. To take his fantasy game to the next level, his rebounding numbers needs to get better, and he also needs to find a way to keep his fouls in check, as he averaged 3.8 fouls per game at 26 minutes of playing time last year. Like all young players, I expect Jackson Jr.'s offensive game to continue to develop, helping him put up even better shooting percentages as the season goes on. Overall, Jackson Jr. has massive long-term potential and should be a safe pick in Dynasty and Keeper Leagues. During his prime, I could see him being a top 20 fantasy player, but it's hard to say if he can put it all together this year. In redraft leagues, I still think this is going to be the year where Jackson Jr. takes another step forward and set new career highs across the board. With Marc Gasol and Mike Conley gone, I expect the floodgates to open for Jackson Jr. He could be the #1 options on most nights, and Memphis looks to be building around him, so he should be given plenty of opportunities to eat this year. In a nutshell, if Jaren Jackson Jr. continues to improve and can stay out of foul trouble, I can see him having no trouble averaging a 19 and 6 stat line, along with 1.5 blocks, 1 steal, and 1 3 per game this year. Zion Williamson is arguably one of the most hyped rookies to enter the NBA in a long time. We have even seen him being compared to some of the best in the game. Fantasy-wise, I don't think it's a huge gamble to draft Zion this year, but you might have to be careful in some leagues, as his ADP might skyrocket due to all the hype around him this year. So in standard 12-team redraft leagues, I think taking Zion anywhere before the 3rd round might be a reach. But in dynasty and keeper leagues, I think you have to take your shot early, since Zion has potential to be a generational talent who could be a top 10 fantasy player for a long time. Some say he might take a few years to develop, but we have seen some rookies come in and put up nice fantasy numbers right away. For example, a less hyped first overall pick like DeAndre Ayton came in and averaged a respectable 16 and 10 last year. Meanwhile, rookies like Luka Doncic and Trae Young only needed 1 season to reach top 25 value, so it's hard to write off Zion right away. There is some uncertainty about his weight and whether he will be able to develop a reliable NBA jump shot, but his athleticism, strength, and talent should make him a high-impact player right away. Conservatively speaking, Zion could put up a 16 and 8 stat line along with 1.5 blocks and 1 steal per game right away. His shooting might not be there next year, so he might be a punt guy in free throws. On top of that, managers who draft him shouldn't expect a lot of threes either. However, Zion looks to be a very special NBA and fantasy player in the near future, so this year might be the best time to buy in low on him before his fantasy value skyrockets in the next 2 to 4 years. Rui Hernangomez of the Washington Wizards is a very interesting fantasy rookie to potentially target, especially if you play in a very deep keeper or dynasty league. He looked really impressive during summer league, and he seems a lot more ready for the NBA than many expected him to be. Hachimura is still very raw at this point, but some people even compared his game to a young Kawhi Leonard, so there's definitely potential there. If you look at his college stats, you can tell that he knows how to score close to the basket and can provide you with rebounds, steals, and blocks as well. What's missing in his game is a 3-point shot, but assuming that his skills translates at the NBA level, maybe we could see him average Kawhi Leonard rookie type numbers and see him be an 8 and 5 guy along with over 1 steal and half a block a game. Those stats aren't amazing, but Hachimura could be a huge difference maker in very deep leagues. At the same time, we can't forget that the Wizards are likely gonna be terrible this year, so Rui can get a bit of a run as their season dies down. Unlike Kawhi, who played on a pretty stacked team as a rookie, Rui is entering a different situation. You should consider picking him up, especially after the All-Star break, as he has potential to blow up in the last few months of the season and be one of the biggest fantasy risers. Zach Collins of the Portland Trail Blazers is another potential sleeper to target at the power forward position. Collins didn't really get a chance to eat in Portland in his first 2 seasons, but still managed to improve in every major fantasy category from year 1 to year 2. With Mo Harkless and Al-Farouq Aminu gone, the front court should clear up a bit in Portland this year. Collins is projected to be the Blazers' starting power forward, so there's a chance that he could play 30 minutes a game next season. Depending on how Whiteside pans out, we might see Collins move up to the 5 as well, especially if Terry Stotts wants more shooting in the lineup. This should improve his rebounds and defensive stats. His per 36-minute stats from last season sees him as a 14 and 9 guy, along with 1.8 blocks, 0.7 steals, and 1.1 threes. But realistically speaking, if we see Collins play closer to 30 minutes a game, I could see him be more of a 12 and 7 guy, along with 0.8 steals, 1.5 blocks, and 1 3 per game. That stat line might not make him an elite fantasy player, but Zach Collins should be considered as a very decent pickup if you're able to get him in the later rounds. Danilo Gallinari has been a very solid fantasy player for a long time, but for some reason he seems to be one of the more underrated fantasy players year after year. Perhaps injuries may have been a concern, but he was still able to appear in 68 games for the LA Clippers last year, while averaging a 19 and 6 stat line along with 2.4 threes per game. Believe it or not, his move to the OKC Thunder this summer might put him in a better situation to put up career highs at the age of 31. With Westbrook and Paul George gone, the Thunder will need new players to score, and Gallinari should be one of their main options. We all know that a player like Steven Adams will get his chance to eat, but if you look at the Thunder's lineup, there are a lot of question marks. For one, their bench looks very thin, especially in the front court. At the same time, nobody knows what will happen with Chris Paul and when, but the 2 most likely scenarios is that he will either get traded sometime during the season, or given his history of injuries, Paul will likely miss some time, and might even be shut down near the end of the season. From afar, it looks like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Danilo Gallinari will be given the most opportunities to produce. At the same time, the Thunder looks like they are in a major rebuild, so a name like Steven Adams could get moved as well, and this should open things up even more for Gallo. With that said, Gallinari has a legit chance to average over 20 points for the first time in his career. I could totally see Gallinari average a 22 and 8 stat line with over 2 threes and 3 assists per game. If he's able to stay healthy all season long, he should be able to creep into the top 50 by the end of next season.
What's good, everybody? This is CP and I have some very exciting news to announce today. So basically, for this fantasy season, I've decided to step things up a bit and will be hosting my very own competitive 12-team head-to-head money league, where I'll be competing with 11 of my subscribers for cash prizes. I plan to reward the top 3 finishers with cash prizes. On top of that, the first place winner will be receiving a very special gift delivered from me. To find out how you can qualify for this league and win some money, check out the link below. Don't wait, because once the spots fill up, I'll be locking up the league until the season starts. I hope to see some of you there, and I can't wait for the season to start. 走起吧!
If you want to watch more fantasy basketball related videos like this one, make sure you go through my fantasy playlist with the links right here. In my other videos, I talk about potential sleepers and breakout players you might want to target in other positions. On top of that, I also share potential game-changing fantasy tips that can help you win it all this year. Let's go, baby!